Okay, so we've got this object selected and we can move it with W, we can rotate it with E, and we can scale it with R. We know that, but what if we want to move components or parts of this? There are three main components to any polygonal object. And if I right click and hold, I've got edges, vertex, or faces, and I can manipulate any of these individually. So you probably guessed it, if I hit edge here and select or hover over components, I can grab something like an edge and I could move it. So I could slide this around and create more like a triangle. All right? That's an edge. Now if I right click and hover over vertices or vertex, I can grab these points here. Sometimes I'll refer to them as points. Don't worry. I will be doing that quite a bit, and I've used multiple 3D animation software. So I've used about a half dozen softwares: Softimage, 3ds Max, Lightwave, TrueSpace, Cinema 4D. So they all mix and match terms, but they're basically the same thing. So if you hear me say points, or if I refer to faces as polys, you'll know pretty quickly after hearing me for hours and hours what I'm talking about. Okay, so these are points. I can again move these individually like that. Now I can't scale a point. If I hit R and try to scale, it's not going to do anything. And I also cannot rotate a point, but I can on the edges. So if I go back to edge mode, I can do that. Can I scale an edge? What do you think? I'll hit R. What do you think is going to happen? Yep, you can scale edges too. Now one of the ones we'll be using quite a bit, and I will constantly call them polys, is faces. Now the face is this flat plane right here. And I can do all of the following to them. I can move the faces, and notice everything goes with it, and I can scale the face, and I can rotate it. Right? You'll constantly hear me referring to these faces as polys. Don't worry about it. Okay? So what I want you to do, and why I'm taking time with this, is it's extremely important to learn not just how to move and get into component mode, but how to navigate around the viewport, how to hit spacebar and jump around, see what you're doing. So you've got to practice a little bit before we get into modeling our first character. What I want you to do is grab some of these other shapes up here. Like I could hit this torus right here, boom. Doesn't look like anything happened, but that's because it's behind our big object here. So keep that in mind. We've got this torus here, and we could scale it up. And what we can do is we can select components now and move them around and try to create a more complex shape. So let's go into face mode. And what we can do is shift select various faces and move them around. Now sometimes it's hard to select because you're accidentally selecting this right here, this scale tool. So if you hit Q, and you'll be in the select tool. So you want to stay in the select tool. Sometimes it gets frustrating when you're in one of these other tools and you're trying to select. So just keep that in mind. Select tool, by the way, the hotkey for select tool is Q. Definitely memorize this one, okay? You'll be stuck in this mode and you'll be trying to select polys and you'll accidentally select this handle and you'll mess things up. So Q for select tool. And we'll just select some components here, holding the shift key down, and then we can hit W and we can just move these points around. Like so. We could even scale them up. Now my challenge for you is to make something complex that actually looks like something else. So try to make this look like a spaceship or something useful, not just a blob of polys, all right? And it's going to be hard because I haven't showed you some other common tools that we'll need to really refine an object, but that's the challenge of it. Try to create something that looks like it has a purpose of some kind, or just think alien spaceship. That's what I always do. Now, if you have something that you don't want selected, like I don't want this poly right here selected, but I accidentally selected it, I can hold down Control. Okay? So, there we go. Trying to make something like a spaceship. And then if you want to go and move things out of the way, I can go back to object mode and move this away from this cube, or move the cube away from it. And then I can go back into mode. So this time I'm going to go with edges. So I'll select a bunch of edges. Now I am in this move tool, and I want to go back to select tool, right? So I hit Q. All right, so now I can just select them without a problem. And another thing I can do is I can do something called an edge loop by shift double clicking. And now I've got this whole edge loop selected right here. So I can do all of that at once. I could scale that out like so. All right, just a little hotkey. Don't have to memorize that one right away, but it is going to come in useful. I'll just show you a couple more times. So I select, shift double click, and I get a whole edge selected. really quickly. Now these kind of hotkeys are useful for being a professional modeler because you have to learn how to quickly model something. Otherwise you'll never get done, which is fine, but I'm just trying to help you become awesome, like myself. So now I've got something that's kind of looking like a spaceship. You know, it's not, you know, the coolest spaceship in the world, but it is a spaceship. I assure you. There are aliens living in this right now. So, and this is not me trying to show you how to build a spaceship. This is me trying to get you used to moving around, switching viewports, using the rotate, using the move, rotate, and scale tools, and of course component mode. So you've learned a ton here, and I did have someone criticize my course. Let's go back to object mode. You're learning a ton right here, and it's a lot to take in. I totally understand that. Pause it, rewind it, practice all these hotkeys, okay? I'm gonna have a quiz at the end so that you can memorize them. That's your goal, memorize them and become comfortable moving around, using Alt to rotate around. At first it's gonna feel clunky, but just think about it like a video game, which we're gonna be modeling video game characters, so I'm expecting that a lot of you are familiar with gaming. And if you're familiar with gaming, you've mastered very complex things that if you asked your parents who don't game how to do, they wouldn't be able to do it and they'd look awkward. So do not feel awkward while you're doing these interactions. Pretty soon you're going to be a natural and you're going to be like a ninja in here and you're going to be moving polys like they're nothing. I promise you. Okay, this one's gotten a little bit long. We're going to stop it here. In the next one, we're going to show project structure, and then in the next one after that, we're going to get to modeling. I'll see you then.